intelligence, you can with artificial intelligence, you can automate a lot of tasks. And as you automate your tasks, you can free up those resources and do high value complex activities. As an example can be, one part of the business will be training data with the foundational models. And you can have these resources work on a red teaming effort so that you can prevent the malicious data getting ingested into the foundational models. So in a nutshell, the last point I would say is to retain the talent, the hybrid workforce, as well as the employee value proposition matters, especially the same talent is being competed by the multiple enterprises.
Thanks, Khwaja. So what type of enterprise level security function should companies have?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. I strongly recommend to have enterprise level cybersecurity risk management framework. And this cybersecurity risk management framework must comply with NIST's cybersecurity framework, as well as zero trust architecture. I will share with you 4 critical functions at a minimum any enterprise needs. Number 1, make sure your enterprise architecture is adaptive. As I mentioned earlier, as you change your business architecture, both the cybersecurity and technology architecture has a profound implications. So you need to make sure your cybersecurity is part of everybody's conversation, and enterprise architecture plays a vital role as you change your business as well as you grow your business. And number 2, make sure you have security architecture and standards. And these security architecture should encompass all architecture disciplines. It includes application security architecture, infrastructure security architecture, data security architecture, third-party risk ecosystem architecture, and so on and so forth. And also make sure that you have identity and access management. Security operations centers is critical. Threat intelligence is critical. And incident management is also crucial. When I say incident management, it is not just about detecting the incident, but also the ability to bring the business back online, which means that preparation. So with an effective incident management, you will be able to bring your business back up online. And also make sure that you have the threat intelligence. And finally, governance, risk, and compliance is crucial. And when it comes to compliance, there's a big difference between security and compliance. These are 2 different things. We need to make sure as an enterprise, if you are in the financial services industry, you comply with PCI standards. And if you are a global company, you need to make sure you comply with GDPR. And if you are in the healthcare industry, you need to comply with HIPAA. So make sure you have the compliance put into place. And with reference to risk, you need to ensure that risk is understood by all parts of the organization. And when the risk is identified, it should be escalated all the way to the top. And the governance function, make sure that accountability is extended from senior management to all the way to the board.
Verdell, do you have any follow-ups?
Yes, that was very detailed. I just have 2 little add-ons that I want to add there too. Is just 1, companies should really consider having 2 things: a program management office for cybersecurity and an InfoSec executive council. So the program management office, PMO, that is an office that would be responsible for the project management function of cybersecurity functions and task forces and workflows throughout the organization. So it'll be full of program managers, project managers, scrum managers. All people like that should report into that PMO, and they would be responsible for standardizing those project management processes. And second, the Information Security Council, like Khwaja, done a great job of just talking about how this is everybody's problem. And I think that's the number 1 takeaway that everyone should take away from this panel. The InfoSec Executive Council will be so helpful. So cyber leaders can read out to executive leaders across an organization to ensure cross-functional alignment and support from senior management. There have been some organizations that I've been in the past where cyber leaders have been kind of just shouting in the wind for resources and things that they need, because there's just not enough, there's not enough buy-in and exposure to the top level of the organization to be able to surface those issues and needs to the top. So an InfoSec executive council can really help with that.
Thanks, Verdell. One of the things that you have been repeating is that this is everyone's responsibility. So how do you get the whole organization thinking about cybersecurity?
I think a big way that you think about it is, how do you pay? How do people get paid? What do people get measured on? Because once you put something in people's compensation package, or this is what they're being evaluated by, then people start to pay attention to it at that point. The key takeaway is, like, all personnel are responsible for this, not just the people who are in the tech division, board members too, just because of the immense enterprise risk that's involved in cybersecurity instances. Like, no one is absolved from that responsibility. In the past couple of months, have really been kind of like hammering at Scholastic in particular for getting a dashboard, so we can see those security metrics on a monthly basis, and we've gotten that set up now too. But I've been hemming and hawing about that for the longest time. And your table stakes are going to be there. You're going to be your training exercises, your webinars, you track compliance there. But I think to take it a step further, what I was saying at the top, making sure that is reflected in people's evaluation, making sure that that's reflected in business proposals and product development. Considering cybersecurity impact should be a part of all business proposals, all product development proposals. InfoSec concerns need to have a seat at the table from the very beginning. I think that's kind of the most important thing, is just to get everyone thinking about this, is this is not something that's tacked on at the end when you're coming up with anything new for the company, even updating things that are existing in terms of workflow, processes, investment priorities. Having that cybersecurity lens there from the very beginning needs to be done.
Thanks, Verdell. Khwaja, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the Verdell touched on the workflow processes. I think we really need to fix the inefficiencies in the recruitment processes. At IBM, we have a unique technology called artificial intelligence Watson Orchestrate. This Watson Orchestrate not only helps in identifying the skill set gaps, but also helps in improving the productivity, drastically impacting the bottom line. So you need to make sure you have the talent ready so that they can identify whatever the risk that appears. And it is very important that you oversee senior management, that they have a holistic strategy around their skill set imperatives. It includes upskilling, reskilling, internships, full-time, outsourcing, returnship, etc. So it cuts across all dimensions of the talent workforce. And secondly, we need to get ready with the impact of AI on the cybersecurity skills. Artificial intelligence is a general purpose technology that can automate a lot of tasks. And as I said earlier, we can redirect those resources into high complex tasks around red teaming, etc. And third, we need to make sure the cybersecurity accountability is extended from the senior management all the way to the board. And lastly, what I would say is when it comes to cybersecurity education sessions, it should be business as usual. You should not be treating cybersecurity education session as an ad hoc imperative that we have COVID and there is a greater threat interface, we need to train the people. It should not be like that. It should be business as usual, because we need new skills and more skills. And unless you make it as a continuous process, that only you can make sure your talent is up to par, way ahead of the hackers.
Thanks. So what are the 2 takeaways you'd like for the audience to have here?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, absolutely. 2 takeaways I would say here is talent drives everything, strategy and risk. Make sure you prioritize skills over the roles, and make sure you have HR on every board meeting agenda. When you have it on every board meeting agenda, you make sure your cybersecurity talent is embedded across all parts of the organization. And second, what I would say is, especially for the audience who is on this session today, as you go back, look at your current board. If you do not have cybersecurity expertise, refresh the board by working with the general counsel and the chair of the nomination governance committee. In fact, BoardC can help in this regard to refresh the board in cybersecurity. And the second I would say is, look at your committee structure and refresh the committee structure. And again, have technology and cybersecurity as one committee so that you can embed cybersecurity in all parts of the conversation, because every company is a technology company these days.
Thanks, Khwaja. Verdell?
Yeah, and I want to follow on from that last point too. That's what we've done here at Scholastic, is like having a separate board committee just for kind of technical and cybersecurity issues. A lot of companies will embed that in the risk committee or the audit committee too, but just because of the immense enterprise risks that are posed by cyber incidents, I think every company would be well served to have a separate committee looking at that. I really agree with Khwaja there. I'm going to be a broken record. This is everybody's problem. That's the number one takeaway I want people to take away from this. And the second kind of part of this is, I would encourage everybody who here, do not be intimidated by cybersecurity. You know, you may be a non-technical person, like you may not be a CTO or, you know, an information or an IT professional or anything like that, but that still doesn't mean that you can't get involved in cyber issues. When I joined the board, I actually took a lot of cybersecurity training myself, just because I was deeply personally interested in this, and also just seeing from so many cyber incidents what that had, the risks that they pose to companies. So I wanted to get smart myself on this. So I hope that people that are listening on this panel are not intimidated by cybersecurity issues. Like the Khwajas of the world have got it like a day-to-day executive standpoint. But for those of us who are serving on boards, we need to know enough to be dangerous. We need to know enough to ask smart questions. And most importantly, we need to know enough to be able to provide great support to our CTOs, to be able to make sure that they have the resources that they need to be able to protect our organizations from cyber risks. And I also just want to leave the attendees with a few questions that they can take to their CTOs on a regular basis. I routinely bug my CTO at Scholastic with a number of things, a number of questions, but 4 to start with. 1, where are the biggest gaps in our capabilities? And how do you see that headcount evolving against those gaps in the next several quarters? 2, how long does it take to hire a head in the cyber organization on average? And is our compensation competitive amongst our peers and outside of our industry? Because remember, like if you have the $3 million, the 3 million open positions point that I made earlier, is just like cybersecurity professionals, great ones are hard to find, and when they could be poached by anybody. So just think about how competitive you are, not just amongst your peers in your industry, but outside of your industry. 3, what developmental growth opportunities and resources are we making available to employees? And that includes your CTO. Just because somebody is in the C-suite doesn't mean that their education stops. Like, you want to make sure that you're continuing to invest in your CTO and making sure that they're being challenged and growing and their skills are staying sharp as well. And 4, how often do we reevaluate personnel for security risks? In other words, beyond the hire stage. I know there are a lot of companies, like you may, have a background check or whatnot at the beginning of the hiring stage, but that needs to be done continuously as well. So those are the 4 questions that I would recommend taking to your CTO today, so you can get a jump on this.
Thank you both for your insights today. Don't know if we have any questions. We have about 1 minute for questions from the audience, if you have any. Go ahead. Khwaja and Verdell, to repeat the question from Tracy Harris, is that a lot of companies have cut back on spend for conferences. We understand that the pandemic slowed things down, but what's happening? What do you see in terms of this literacy and creating this workforce in terms of getting education to the employees?
Yeah, good question. I think you need to look at multiple levels. One area what I would say is you can send a few folks to the conferences, and then the people who attended those conferences can come back and then cross-pollinate that knowledge for the rest of the organization. That is number one. Number two, just like the way today's newspaper, whatever I get today is the old news. There's a lot of education that you can learn by following some thought leaders on Twitter. For example, I have my own LinkedIn newsletter that goes in once in 2 weeks that talks about board effectiveness on C-suite, etc. And you need to have more industry level conversations. In financial services industry, there's a lot of collaboration between the companies, between the banks on what is happening, what are they doing well, what are they not doing well, what are the threat exposure that they're exposing, etc., etc. So it has to be an interconnected ecosystem when it comes to the education. And again, as I mentioned, this education should be business as usual across all levels of the organization. One simple thing I would tell you during the all hands call, if the CEO is discussing about the phishing, imagine the impact that it will have across all parts of the enterprise about how important an employee needs to take for the phishing incident, how that insider threat can be implemented. So finally, I would say, anchoring the noble purpose with the business strategy is very critical. Just like the way if everybody, when they are building their products, they want to make sure those products are safe enough so that somebody else is using those products. It does not have any safety implications. So it has to be more interconnected across all levers of the training opportunities we should leverage in this era.
Thank you, Khwaja, and thank you both for discussing the scope of innovation and risk in cybersecurity within today's tumultuous economic and societal landscape. And thank you, our participants on Zoom, for watching.